what I plan to do today is to help maybe clarify and help some understanding on what it is that Dustin Harris does.
Originating from deep inside the Rocky Mountains, transported through the power of the internet, and arriving inside your tiny earbuds. It's the Appraiser Coach Podcast, helping appraisers increase their efficiency, quality, and make more money. Here's the guy who makes it his life's mission to create value for real estate appraisers nationwide. Your host and the Appraiser Coach, Dustin Harris.
Welcome to the program, everybody. Dustin Harris hanging out in the podcast chair. I want to pause and remind you that we're sponsored by a couple of great companies today. Of course, Spark. Spark is the ability to be able to import data directly into your report. That means it saves you time and money. Go to spark4appraisers.com. Again, it's spark4appraisers.com. And of course, we're sponsored by OREP Insurance. OREP is the E&O insurance that I have been using for years and will continue to use because, well, they're awesome. OREP.org, OREP.org. All right, folks, kind of a different episode today. I want to make some clarification. Mostly what I don't do, a little bit about what I do. The title today on the podcast is maybe a little bit deceiving, but not really. I mean, it really is truly, it's an accurate title, right? Sure, it's put out there to grab some attention a little bit, but the title today is I am not an appraisal coach, or I'm not the appraisal coach. And what I plan to do today is to help maybe clarify and help some understanding on what it is that Dustin Harris does. Okay, first, let me set the stage a little bit and give you a little bit of background. We are 1,000 plus episodes now here at the Appraiser Coach Podcast. And I've been doing this coaching thing since 2010. I've been an appraiser since 1996. And I have appraised in 3 states. Currently, I'm only appraising in 2 states. But my story is very simple in the sense that I was doing things like every other appraiser. I was doing things like I learned from my mentor, who happens to be my father, rest his soul, and like those that I saw around me. Right. And as the old saying goes, as you do what everyone else around you is doing, you get what everyone else around you is getting. And I did that for, well, many years, right? At least 10, maybe 12 years, I was doing what everyone else was doing. And as a consequence, I was working paycheck to paycheck. I was getting a lot of hours in per week. We're talking on average 60 plus per week, sometimes 80. There were times I was working 90 plus hours a week, right, when things were busy. And it was honestly kind of miserable. I didn't really love my life. I didn't really like I didn't even enjoy appraising, even though it was my chosen profession. I didn't really like the money in the sense that it was paying the bills, but it really wasn't allowing me to get ahead. And I decided that I needed to do something different. And what I decided to do, again, long story short, was my wife and I decided to cut television out of our lives. Now, this was long before streaming on smartphones and everything else that we love and enjoy today, right? So we were, I'll be honest with you, a little bit, I wouldn't say addicted, but kind of addicted to the old boob tube, as my dad used to call it, right? So in the evenings, my wife and I would gather, and we had young kids, and we had stressful lives, and we would watch American Idol or whatever it was on TV, and I would say on average we spent maybe 2 hours a day watching television, and she and I both decided we needed to do something different. So we decided to get rid of the television, and that freed up some space. As they say, the universe abhors a vacuum. That's freed up some space for us to fill. And I personally chose to fill that with books and study and research. And one of the biggest main topics that I decided to study was success. I know that's a broad word, right? But that's the best way I can describe it is what is it that successful people do? And I got into American history. I got into Napoleon Hill. I got into what I call the principles of prosperity. I came up with a list of principles of prosperity. Yes, I've taught those. They're out there. They're in my podcast, actually. I went through each one of them individually. Just search principles of prosperity if you want to go through those. These were not unique principles. In fact, they were universal principles. Now, they were unique to me in the sense that I, quote unquote, came up with them, right? I didn't go to a list and then research them one by one. I developed my own list as I went through and basically tried to answer the question, what is it that successful people universally do? And what I found was successful people, living or dead, if you research their processes and their habits and their lifestyles. And by the way, I mentioned Napoleon Hill. He was a huge shortcut to that in the sense that his life was filled with studying successful people, and then he culminated in the principles that he wrote into his books, right? So maybe some of those were stolen from him, but keep in mind he stole them from others, right? So the idea is to universally study successful people, and it didn't matter which political party, it didn't matter which industry they were in, but what causes people to be successful? And I came up with the principles of prosperity, but that was only the beginning of my journey. From there, I had to start putting them into practice, right? And I failed miserably over and over and over again until I kind of figured it out. Now, I in no way have it all figured out, but I've been utilizing these principles for long enough now that I feel pretty comfortable, pretty confident in saying these are universal principles that work. And I took them from other industries and then applied them to the appraisal world. Okay. And that's when I started coaching, and that's when I started teaching. And so this brings us to the title today of the podcast. And I want to dig into why I chose the title and remind you, I am not an appraisal coach, but I am an advocate of OREP insurance. OREP, of course, is the insurance that I've been using for years. And I love them because they're a broker. What does that mean, folks? That means that they are in it for you, not for them. They're looking for the best policy and the best price for your individual situation, and they will do that for you. Find out more by going to their website at orep.org. That's OREP.org. And of course, we're sponsored by Spark. Spark was developed by appraisers to help save appraisers time. And when you save appraisers time, you save appraisers money. Don't look at the cost of Spark any further than an investment in yourself. Check them out by going to Spark4, F-O-R, appraisers.com. That's Spark4, appraisers.com. All right, folks, welcome back to the program. My name is Dustin Harris, and I am not the appraisal coach. What do I mean by that? Well, folks, I want to make it clear, okay? And you're just going to trust me on this, right? Obviously, everybody thinks they're the best appraiser out there, right? I think I'm a pretty good appraiser. And I will say this, the reason I think I'm a good appraiser is I understand my limitations, okay? I'm self-aware to know when I don't know. I'm self-aware to know when I need help. Okay? I'm not like a lot of appraisers that will dig into things and try things out and put their neck out there without getting some assistance and some help, right? USPAP requires that if you are not competent, that you let the client know and that you take the steps to get competent. And there have been many times that I've partnered with other appraisers to say, listen, I'm out of my depths here and I need your help. And significant assistance is developed and reported, and everything's out in the open, right? I believe in doing things right. Now, that being said, if I can toot my own horn for a little bit, right? I've been doing this almost 30 years, right? So 28 years. I started in 1996 and I was dumb as hell. I go back and I look at the reports that I did, in the late 90s, and I think, holy smokes, am I glad the statute of limitations is gone on that one, right? And I will freely admit sometimes I do some pretty stupid things today, right? I do my best, but I'm human and I make mistakes, right? Now, side note, I have a lot of things in place to catch those mistakes, right? A lot of checks and balances these days that I didn't have before. So I think those mistakes are less and less, but I've been covering some difficult areas, been doing, I cut my teeth, if you will, on doing the hard assignments. Even as a trainee, and life was much different back then, right? My dad trained me across state lines. For 3 years, he trained me. I lived in Utah, he lived in Idaho, and there were only, I think, 3 times that he actually had to get in the car and drive down and walk through a house. Back then, it really wasn't a thing. It wasn't a big deal. We were very clear. We were open. We reported everything, right? But he didn't have to walk through the properties back then. So a lot of phone calls, a lot of discussion, right? But a lot of just kind of learning and growing and the school of hard knocks, if you will. But I built my business on, hey, call me, I'll do the hard ones, right? And that did 2 things. It got me more business, got me in the door of more mortgage companies, and it also developed my skills to where now I'm not afraid of anything. Well, that's not true. There's a few things I'm afraid of, but very few, right? You give me a difficult assignment and I will do it. You give me a $30 million ranch in Jackson Hole, I'm going to charge you for it, right? I'm going to get paid for it, but I'll do it because I have the confidence that I can do it and do it correctly. But you give me a partial interest, right? I'll do it, but I'm going to partner with someone else who knows what the hell they're doing, right? And that's the difference. And I think that's honestly, I think that's what makes a good appraiser, right? That they understand what skills they have and what skills that they don't have, and that they focus on the things that they are good at and are willing to accept help where they're not. Okay, so why the title today? I'm not an appraisal coach. As a voice in the valuation world, I've got a podcast, I've got blogs, I've got masterminds, I've got the all-star team, I attend conferences, I speak in front of groups, I'm out there, right? I try to put my name out there as somebody who can assist others. I sometimes get confused, or sometimes people get confused about what it is that I do. And they might send me a note, whether it be, Facebook Messenger, email, phone calls, what have you, okay? And they reach out to me and they say, hey, Dustin, how would you handle this? And this is some type of an appraisal question, right? Cost approach, sales comparison approach, challenging property, Fannie, FHA, that kind of thing, right? How would you do this, Dustin? As an appraisal coach, how would you do this? And I have to remind people, not that I'm unwilling to answer those questions, and you can go back through the episodes here on the Appraiser Coach podcast and realize there are many times that we have focused on the techniques and the technicalities of doing an appraisal. But I have to remind people, I am not an appraisal coach. I'm not here to teach you to be a better appraiser. There are a lot of people out there doing that, okay? A lot of them I've had on this program to answer those questions, right? An individual that I trust a great deal is my good friend, Mr. Tim Anderson. And he's not the only one, but he's the most frequent guest on the Appraiser Coach podcast to answer those types of questions. Highest and best use, the 3 approaches to value, use PAP, state boards, right? All of this stuff is to make you a better appraiser. That's not my role. That's why I have Tim on the program, because I am self-aware to know that when those questions come in, that I might have an idea, but I'm not going to stick my neck out and say definitively this is the way things are. I'd rather trust the expert at that, and in this case, it would be Mr. Tim Anderson, the appraiser's advocate. I am an appraiser coach. What does that mean? Well, the better way to say that, though it makes for a longer name, is Dustin Harris is the appraiser business coach. Okay. So my role is to step back and say, listen, there's a lot of great appraisers out there. They're really good at the technician side of things. But the honest truth is, many of us did not go to business school. We don't have our MBA. We don't know how to wear the CEO hat. Because of the way that I started the program today, the study that I did in the principles of prosperity and implementing them and learning by the school of hard knocks, I feel like I had some success. I was able to take the paycheck to paycheck and 60 plus hours a week and turn that around into much less than 30 hours a week and making over $1 million per year gross in my appraisal firm, but net taking home $300,000 to $400,000 a year. It can be done, folks. Not only have I done that, but I've been able to help other appraisers do that through my masterminds, my private coaching, my all-star team. Hundreds of appraisers I feel like I've helped to understand, learn those principles, and then apply them into their lives. And that's essentially what I love to do. That's my mission in life, if you will, right? As the podcast starts out, right? The mission in life is to help appraisers have more time and make more money. That's what I love to do. That's my passion in life. It truly is. I can't ever see myself doing any other thing. There's nothing more rewarding than to have people privately come up to me and say, Dustin, I just wanted to thank you. And I wish I had found you earlier, because I was like you, living paycheck to paycheck, hating my life, hating appraisal, drudgery every single day. And I turned that around, and now I'm a business owner. And now I make more money. Now I have more time for myself. Now I delegate. Now I infuse technology and systems that are principles of prosperity that every single industry uses. But for some reason, the appraisal world feels like they're immune to that. Like that they just have to do it all, that they have to grind every single day. And when you get on the forums, folks, there's negativity across the board when it comes to appraisers. They hate their lives. They hate the change. They hate the uncustomary and reasonable fees. They hate AMCs. They hate fill in the blank. Folks, I promise you, and this is not a sales pitch. Again, this is a clarification podcast. I'm not an appraisal coach. I'm an appraiser coach, but I promise you that you spend some time with me and you're willing to do the hard work. I absolutely promise you that I can change it around for you. And you can get back to why you got into this in the first place. Most people get into the appraisal world because they want to own their own business. They want to have a freedom of schedule. They want to be able to have some semblance of success, meaning they want that their efforts to be rewarded monetarily. And they lose sight of that very quickly because they start doing things like everybody else, including their mentor. I can change that for you. Again, folks, I can probably answer a few appraisal questions out there, but that's not my role. There's a lot of teachers out there, a lot of really good appraisers who will teach you how to be a better appraiser. Look at any appraisal class out there, and it probably fits that. Okay. One of the funny things about what I do, and I've spoken at conferences before, national conferences, but typically it's after a conversation with the organizer who says, well, this is for CE and we can't really, talk about how to be, more successful and make more money as a real estate appraiser. So you're going to have to, do something like how to fill in the blank. That's more how to be a better appraiser, right? And then work your other stuff into it. It's kind of silly, frankly, that we are so, as a group, as an industry, as a profession, we're so focused on continuing education that we forget that there's other education out there as well on how to be a CEO, how to run a successful appraisal business, how to look at a P&L, how to look at a balance sheet, how to run the numbers and work the systems so that you can make more money and have more time for you and your family. That's what I do. I'm not an appraisal coach, folks. I'm an appraiser coach. Would love to help you. The coach at theappraisercoach.com. Reach out to me. Love to meet one-on-one with you, or in the mastermind, or the all-star team at the very least. Love you all. Thanks for being there. Thanks for being there today as well. And go create some value.
You've been listening to the Appraiser Coach podcast with Dustin Harris. If you like what you hear, please give us a 5-star rating and post a short review on iTunes. For more in-depth insider information on how you can make more money as a real estate appraiser, visit theappraisercoach.com and sign up for the All-Star team today. Thanks for joining us. And now, get out there and create some value.